Learning Linux can feel overwhelming at first because it looks very different from Windows or Mac OS. But the truth is that once you understand the logic behind it, the learning curve becomes much smoother and even enjoyable. Many beginners make the mistake of trying to memorize commands without understanding why they exist, and that slows progress dramatically. The fastest way to learn Linux is to shift your mindset from using an operating system to understanding a system. Linux is not just software. It is an ecosystem built around flexibility, control, and community knowledge. When you approach it with curiosity instead of fear, you start noticing patterns. Every command, directory, and configuration file follows certain principles, and recognizing those patterns reduces the amount of information you need to memorize. The first proven way to learn Linux faster is to build a habit of learning by doing instead of just watching tutorials. Passive watching gives you the illusion of progress, but real skill comes from typing commands yourself, breaking things, fixing them, and repeating the process. When you install Linux in a virtual machine or on an old laptop, you create a safe environment where mistakes become lessons instead of disasters. You begin to understand file permissions when a program refuses to run, or networking concepts when an update fails. These small frustrations actually accelerate learning because they force you to search for solutions, read documentation, and connect concepts together. Another powerful method to speed up your learning is to focus on the command line early, even if it feels uncomfortable. Many beginners avoid the terminal because it looks complicated, but it is actually the fastest gateway into understanding how Linux works internally. The graphical interface hides many processes, while the terminal exposes them clearly. When you use commands like ls, cd, mkdir, cpmv, and nano regularly, you start forming muscle memory. Over time, you stop thinking about syntax and begin thinking about workflow. Instead of clicking through menus, you learn to automate actions with simple commands, and this sense of control builds confidence. The key is not to memorize hundreds of commands at once, but to master a small core set and expand gradually. As you practice, you will notice that Linux commands often follow logical naming patterns, which makes learning new tools easier. Reading manual pages using the man command becomes less intimidating because you start recognizing familiar structures. Every small success reinforces motivation, which is essential for long-term learning. Consistency is another major factor that determines how quickly someone learns. Linux. Spending 10 minutes every day exploring your system is more effective than watching a long tutorial once a week. Regular interaction helps you retain information because your brain builds connections through repetition. You might start by customizing your desktop environment, changing themes, or editing configuration files. These simple activities teach you about file paths, hidden folders, and system behavior without feeling like formal study. Over time, you begin to understand how Linux distributions differ and why certain tools exist. Many experienced users recommend setting small daily challenges, such as installing a package without using a graphical store or writing a simple shell script to automate a task. These micro goals keep learning engaging and prevent burnout. The more you integrate Linux into your daily workflow, the faster it stops feeling foreign. Another proven tip is to learn through real projects instead of isolated exercises. When you build something meaningful, your brain connects commands with purpose. For example, setting up a local web server teaches you about package managers, services, permissions, and networking all at once. Creating backups with Rink introduces you to file synchronization and automation. Even something simple like organizing photos using terminal commands can teach powerful concepts. Projects give context to your learning, which makes knowledge stick longer. Instead of memorizing random commands, you understand when and why to use them. This practical approach mirrors how professionals learn in real environments. You are not just studying Linux. You are solving problems with Linux, which accelerates growth dramatically. One of the biggest mistakes beginners make is trying to learn everything alone without using the Linux community. The open source world thrives on shared knowledge, and tapping into that community can save countless hours. Forums, documentation pages, and online discussions often contain solutions to problems you have not even encountered yet. Reading how other users troubleshoot issues exposes you to different perspectives and techniques. Over time, you learn how to search effectively, which is a skill just as valuable as technical knowledge itself. When you see experienced users explaining commands, you begin to understand not only what to type but also why certain approaches are preferred. Engaging with community discussions builds confidence because you realize that even advanced users constantly learn and experiment. The sense of belonging makes the learning journey more enjoyable and less intimidating. Another way to accelerate your progress is to understand the structure of the Linux file system early. Instead of viewing directories as random folders, try to learn the purpose behind paths like etc., home, pervar, and /usr. Once you grasp this structure, many tasks become intuitive. Configuration files usually live in predictable places, logs appear where you expect them, and troubleshooting becomes easier because you know where to look. This knowledge reduces confusion when tutorials mention paths that initially seem unfamiliar. Exploring the file system with curiosity turns your operating system into a learning environment. Opening configuration files and reading comments inside them often reveals valuable insights about how programs work. Even if you do not understand everything immediately, repeated exposure builds familiarity. Learning Linux faster also involves embracing experimentation. Many users hesitate to try new commands because they fear breaking their system, but experimentation is one of the most powerful learning tools available. Using virtual machines or containers allows you to test ideas safely. You might experiment with different desktop environments, install minimal distributions, or try advanced tools like Tmux or Vim. Each experiment expands your understanding and reveals new workflows. The goal is not perfection, but exploration. When something fails, you gain troubleshooting experience, which is a critical skill in the Linux world. Over time, you begin to see errors not as obstacles but as learning opportunities. Time management plays a surprising role in mastering Linux quickly. Instead of trying to learn everything in one sitting, break your learning into focused sessions with clear goals. One day you might focus on file management, another day on package management, and another on networking basics. This structured approach prevents information overload and helps you track progress. Keeping a personal notebook or digital document with commands you learn can also accelerate retention. Writing down explanations in your own words reinforces understanding more effectively than copying from tutorials. Reviewing your notes periodically helps you see how far you have come, which boosts motivation. Visualization is another underrated strategy for learning Linux efficiently. Many concepts become clearer when you imagine how processes interact behind the scenes. For example, thinking of the kernel as the bridge between hardware and software makes system behavior easier to understand. Visualizing permissions as locks and keys helps you remember how user access works. These mental models simplify complex ideas and make troubleshooting less stressful. When you encounter new tools, try to connect them to concepts you already know. Building these connections gradually transforms scattered information into a coherent system in your mind. Automation is a powerful milestone that signals real progress in Linux learning. When you start writing simple shell scripts, you move from being a user to becoming a creator. Even basic scripts that update your system or organize files can teach valuable lessons about variables, loops, and permissions. Automation reduces repetitive work and demonstrates the true power of Linux as a customizable environment. As you grow more comfortable with scripting, you may begin exploring tools like cron for scheduling tasks or aliases for simplifying long commands. These small improvements make daily usage more efficient and reinforce your understanding of how the system operates. Another factor that speeds up learning is choosing the right distribution for your goals. Beginners often jump between multiple distros too quickly, which can slow progress because each environment feels different. Sticking with one main distribution for a while allows you to build deep familiarity. Once you understand the fundamentals, switching becomes much easier because core concepts remain the same across Linux systems. The focus should be on learning principles rather than chasing the perfect distro. As your confidence grows, you naturally become curious about other distributions and their unique features. Developing a troubleshooting mindset is essential for mastering Linux quickly. Instead of feeling frustrated when something breaks, approach problems as puzzles waiting to be solved. Reading error messages carefully often reveals clues about what went wrong. Checking logs, verifying permissions, and searching for similar issues online becomes second nature over time. Each solved problem strengthens your understanding and reduces fear of the unknown. Experienced Linux users often say that the process of fixing issues teaches more than any tutorial ever could. Embracing this mindset turns challenges into stepping stones. Motivation and curiosity are powerful drivers in the learning process. Many people start learning Linux because they want more privacy, performance, or customization, and keeping that personal goal in mind helps maintain momentum. When you feel stuck, try exploring a fun project instead of forcing yourself through difficult material. Maybe customize your terminal with new themes, set up a media server, or experiment with open-source creative tools. These enjoyable experiences remind you why you started learning in the first place. The journey becomes less about mastering commands and more about discovering what you can create. Learning resources also matter, but the key is to use them wisely. Instead of jumping between dozens of tutorials, choose a few reliable sources and follow them consistently. Quality documentation often explains concepts more clearly than random videos because it focuses on fundamentals. Combining reading with hands-on practice creates a balanced learning experience. Watching advanced users work through real problems can also provide valuable insights into workflow and decision-making. Observing how they approach tasks teaches you strategies that go beyond individual commands. One subtle but important tip is to customize your environment gradually. Changing your shell prompt, installing useful tools, and creating aliases makes Linux feel personal and comfortable. When your system reflects your preferences, you naturally spend more time using it, which accelerates learning. However, avoid excessive customization too early, as it can distract from understanding the basics. Focus on small improvements that enhance productivity without overwhelming you. As your knowledge grows, teaching others or explaining concepts aloud can dramatically speed up mastery. When you try to explain a command or workflow, you realize which parts you truly understand and which need more clarity. Even writing simple guides for yourself reinforces learning. Sharing knowledge with friends or online communities builds confidence and strengthens your connection to the Linux ecosystem. Teaching transforms passive knowledge into active expertise. Another aspect of faster learning involves understanding the philosophy behind Linux rather than just its tools. The idea of doing one thing well, the emphasis on open standards, and the flexibility of combining small programs into powerful workflows are core principles that guide many design decisions. When you understand this philosophy, commands and configurations start making more sense. You see Linux not as a collection of random features, but as a coherent system designed for efficiency and creativity. Over time, you will notice that your thinking changes. Tasks that once felt complicated become routine, and you start exploring advanced topics like system services, networking configurations, or containerization. The journey from beginner to confident user happens gradually, often without you realizing it. The most important thing is to stay patient and consistent. Every command you learn adds to a foundation that will support more advanced skills later. Ultimately, learning Linux faster is not about rushing through tutorials, but about building a deep, practical relationship with the system. By practicing regularly, embracing the terminal, working on real projects, engaging with the community, and maintaining curiosity, you create an environment where learning becomes natural and enjoyable. Linux rewards experimentation and persistence, and the more you explore, the more powerful it becomes. With time, what once seemed complex transforms into a flexible tool that adapts to your needs, opening doors to creativity, productivity, and endless possibilities in the world of open-source technology.